loves, welcome back to my channel, and if this is your first time, thank you so much for being here. Today's tutorial is going to be all about my foundation routine. I'm going to show you how I do my foundation, my highlighting and concealing, as well as my contouring. So let's just go ahead and get started. Alright loves, so the first step in my foundation routine is to go in with a primer. For my primer, I like to use the NYX Pore Filler Primer. I really like this primer because it gives your face that smooth appearance before you put on your foundation, and that's because it fills in your pores. It also keeps you matte throughout the day, and I feel like it really gets the foundation to stick without a lot of transfer. So this is one of my favorite primers, and I put this primer all over, but I put a little extra in areas where I have maybe some texture like my forehead, or where I have large pores like right here, or where I tend to get oily like around this area. Moving into foundation, I've been really loving the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 foundation and concealer, and this is in the color Golden Toffee. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to mix it with my Black Opal foundation, and this is in the color Black Walnut. This is the foundation routine when I want high definition, when I'm going to be taking pictures, when I want to look flawless and snatched. You know, this is not your everyday kind of makeup. This is a full-on glam foundation routine. So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to be blending this out with my e.l.f. Kabuki brush. It's actually listed as a powder brush, but it looks like a kabuki brush to me, as well as my Real Techniques beauty sponge. This beauty sponge is slightly damp. What I do is I wet it, I squeeze out all the water with my hand, and then I squeeze it into a towel to just get any excess off. So by the time I'm done, it is nice and bouncy, but it is just slightly damp. Around my forehead, my cheekbones, my jawline. This is just to cool down the Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation because I do feel it's a bit warm. It does tend to oxidize a little bit darker, so I don't really mind. And take that foundation down your neck and get your ears as well. Now we're going to go in with that damp Real Techniques beauty sponge. This is going to soak up any foundation that's sitting on top of the skin, and it's just going to give you that flawless finish. Now I'm going to do some color correcting using the LA Girl Pro Conceal in the orange corrector color. I like to do this after I put on my foundation just to make sure that I'm only covering areas where there's some darkness peeking through. So I'm going to do my usual under my eye, just a little bit, since that does tend to get a little dark. I'm also going to do around my chin right here and around my lips. And I'm going to use that damp Real Techniques beauty sponge to blend this out. Now I'm going to go in and highlight and conceal my face, and for that I'm going to be using these concealers from LA Girl Pro Conceal. I'm going to be using the color Fawn as well as the color Chestnut together. Now when I highlight underneath my eyes, I like to bring that concealer down the sides of my nose like so. Now the reason for this is that it's going to give your nose sort of a contour without having to pull out the contour color. Now the reason you want to highlight and conceal is so that you can bring some dimension back to your face. A lot of times after you put on foundation, your features kind of get washed out. Your cheekbones aren't popping anymore. There's no light in the center of your face, so you kind of want to bring all that back. And if you're going to be photographed, or if you're going to be in a, you know, a nighttime situation, you definitely want everything to just sort of have this glow, and you want your features to stand out. You don't want to get washed into the background. And then I'm going to layer the Chestnut concealer over the Fawn concealer. I like to leave the concealer underneath my eyes last in terms of blending, because as the concealer gets drier, it's going to give you a little bit more coverage. And again, this is a damp, very slightly damp Real Techniques beauty sponge. Take that concealer up onto my eyelid, because I usually prime my eyes with the concealer anyway, so this just, you know, kind of takes care of that as well. As you can see, bringing that concealer down the sides of our nose kind of makes it look like there's a contour going on, even though we haven't put the contour color in yet. And then just take the base of your sponge and blend out any lines. And I'm only going to be taking the Chestnut concealer underneath my cheekbones. This is called reverse contouring, and as you can see, having that lighter shade underneath your cheekbones really makes the cheekbones pop, and we haven't even added any contour powder yet. Now we're going to blend out that nose highlight. Next, we're going to set the highlighted areas of our face using our Sasha Buttercup setting powder, and we're going to use that same sponge. And remember, that sponge is just slightly damp. So I'm going to take the sponge, I'm going to dip it into the powder. And I'm not just letting the powder sit on the skin, I'm kind of pushing it in a little bit. And that's why I like to use a damp beauty sponge, because it just makes the powder going to the skin a little bit better. Now I'm going to do underneath the eyes. And I start by just very lightly pushing it into the skin. And once the powder is on, then I go ahead and push it in a little bit harder. Make sure you're getting that powder in this area right here, especially if you tend to get oily. And make sure that you're setting down the sides of your nose as well. And once that first layer is down, I'll go in and I'll put a little bit of a heavier amount of powder underneath my eyes. So now we're going to go ahead and contour our face. And for contour, I like to use a really dark brown powder. And today I'm going to be using the brown powder from the City Color Brow Palette. And I'm going to take it on a fluffy brush like this. I'm going to swirl it in the brown powder, tap off any excess, and then we're just going to contour our face. And I'm just going to swirl it, very small swirls, and just bring it down my cheekbones. And you want to keep the contour shade above this lighter area that we created. So just swirl, 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 swirl. I like to put the darkest contour up here and then slowly fade out as I reach sort of the corner of my mouth. So bring that contour up here along your jawline and flick it downwards. This is all about creating shadows and dimension on your face, so you don't just look flat and one-dimensional. I like to go kind of dark with my contour because I know I'm going to buff a lot of this color away once I'm done, and you'll see what I mean here in a bit. And you place it along the perimeter of your face. This makes your forehead appear smaller. Now that I've applied the contour, I'm going to go ahead and set underneath my cheekbones. I like to leave this to last, that way it really cuts that cheekbone. And I think the best thing to do this with is a makeup wedge because it really has that straight edge. So we're just going to dip it into our Sasha Buttercup setting powder and just glide this along ever so gently. And I like to bring this down pretty low, especially because I tend to get some darkness around this area. I feel like this really helps cancel it out. And then we're also going to set around our lips. So we're going to give this about 5 minutes to just kind of soak up all of our oils, to bake, so to speak, and then we're going to come back and we're going to buff this powder away. Alright, so it's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to go in with another e.l.f. Kabuki brush and I'm going to dust off the excess powder. And I'm brushing the powder away in the direction that I want it to set. Alright, so I've dusted off the excess powder and it still looks a little crazy, but that's okay. We're now going to go in with our Black Radiance Soft Focus Finishing Powder. This is in the color Milk Chocolate. And I'm going to take this powder, I'm going to swirl my brush in it. I'm going to push this into the skin, all over the skin, except for underneath the eyes. So I'm pushing it into the skin first. And then I'm going to buff my skin with this powder. So I'm just lightly making little swirls. And immediately you can see it just kind of gives it that airbrush finish. It diffuses it a little bit, but you're not losing any of the contour that you did or any of the highlighting that you did. You're just sort of like blending it all together. So we're going to leave the under eye area for last. So again, swirl, pack it on, buff it away. This is my favorite step of my foundation routine because it just brings everything together. And you're not applying a whole lot of pressure on the brush. It's just kind of sitting on top of your skin. So for the part for underneath my eyes, because I want that area to be really bright, I'm going to take the brush. I'm not adding any product to it. Just whatever's left on the brush. And I'm just buffing away. I'm focusing specifically on the area where the highlight meets the contour. Now I really like this finished product, but I do feel like my contour has traveled up a little bit too high. So all I'm going to do is take that Real Techniques beauty sponge. I'm going to dip it in the powder and I'm just going to place it in the area where I feel needs a little bit more lightness. There you go. Now it just feels a little bit more like at the high points of my cheekbones. And I'm just going to take this with no product and just push it into the skin. I'm not buffing, I'm just pushing it into the skin. And that is pretty much my foundation routine, complete with highlighting and concealing. All I would do after this is put on some bronzer, some blush, some highlight, and then I would set my face with my NYX Dewy Finish Setting Spray. I like the Dewy Finish and the Matte Finish Setting Spray. To me, there's not really much difference. And all you're going to do is spray this all over your face, and it's really just going to melt the powders into your skin so it doesn't look cakey after you're done. So I'm just going to go ahead and set my face so you guys can see how it looks once I've used a setting spray. So I'm going to do my bronzing and my highlighting and some eye makeup, and I'm going to come back so you guys can see how this all looks with, everything put together, okay? All right, my loves, that completes this foundation routine. I went ahead and finished up my face. All I did was add bronzer and highlight. I didn't do blush today, and of course I did my eye makeup and my brows off camera. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and please remember to subscribe if you are not subscribed already. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a marvelous day.
You stare.